First and foremost, Dustin, I want to thank you so much for the show. I know we were just chatting a little bit about how big a fan I am of Better World Books. My understanding is that you all kind of got started because you and some friends were finishing college and selling some of your used textbooks. Is that right? Is that how that kind of was inspired to get started?
Well, it's almost accurate, but I came in a little over a year after the co-founders started the business. So the three co-founders that originated from Notre Dame, they were the ones that had graduated and were collecting textbooks and selling them on a website called half.com. So the idea was born with the three co-founders from Notre Dame, and then eventually they hired our first CEO, who was an alumnus of Notre Dame, and he became the fourth founder of the company. And I was the first non-Notre Dame graduate that they brought into the company to help grow the business a little after a year into the company's inception. And at the time, the company was called Campus Community Outreach. And shortly after we got our start, we changed the name to Better World Books, which more accurately reflected what we were doing and planned to do.
So how did this go from an idea of just, selling used textbooks to, gee, how can we use used books to make a difference?
So that's a great question. So the three founders ran their first book drive at the University of Notre Dame, and from there they branched out through the Midwest, and they actually, to go beyond the Midwest, they actually moved to different parts of the country. So one moved to Austin, Texas, one moved to San Francisco, and one moved to Washington, D.C. And they were all regional directors, essentially running their book drives in those regions, collecting the books, and then shipping them back to South Bend. Actually, to our first warehouse was actually not even a warehouse; it was a closet in the back of the Robinson Community Learning Center. So they were shipping books out of the Robinson Community Learning Center, and each semester, it got bigger and bigger. And Xavier, one of the co-founders, had the idea to branch out beyond college campuses and start working with libraries. And that's where I came into the mix in 2004 to start up our library division. And now, today, almost 17 years later, we serve well over 4,000 libraries in 6 countries.
That's incredible. That is so cool. And I know that you've donated over 26 million books through your Book for Book program. Can you share with us a little bit about how that works?
Certainly. So if you're familiar with Tom's Shoes, I know their models changed over the years, and ours is changing as well. But essentially, for every book that we sell on betterworldbooks.com, so our own website, we donate a book to somebody in need somewhere around the world. So like you said, we've donated well in excess of 26 million books. The number's probably closer to 30 million books and growing. But that's how we're turning your purchase into the do-good factor and getting a book donated somewhere around the world. And we're doing that every single day, 365 days a year, and we're donating millions of books to organizations all around the world because of the customers that are buying books from us on betterworldbooks.com.
That's really cool. And I'm curious, how do you find the folks in need that need books, or these organizations? Like, are folks coming to you and saying, hey, we could really use books, or is it more that you all are doing intentional outreach, or what does that look like?
In a lot of cases, we find them. So our team monitors social media news around the world. And if we see an initiative that we want to get behind and support, we'll reach out to that group and help get books to them, because we're really good at collecting the books and getting the right books to where they're needed most. So we do that millions of times a year. We partner with a lot of great organizations that they let us know what kind of books they're looking for. Sometimes they'll give us a list, and we'll search our inventory and actually go pull books off our shelves and get specific books to organizations. Other times the requests are more general. They might want just textbooks or kids books, and oftentimes we have those available. And the organization, they'll pay for the shipping. Sometimes they'll pay for the cost of the materials like the pallets and boxes, or sometimes they'll even come directly to one of our facilities and pick the books up. I know just recently we donate all kinds of books, textbooks, kids books, but a few weeks ago we donated close to 20-some thousand Bibles that an organization from Michigan came down and picked up directly from us.
That's really cool. And you mentioned that you all work closely with libraries. What does that look like? Is it that libraries, is it expanding their inventory or supplementing what they already have? Like, I'm curious what that relationship looks like.
So we work with libraries to help them manage their surplus books. So in order for a library to make room for the new books that they're buying and adding to their collections, they've got to get rid of some of those books and take some of the older books off their shelves that their patrons, the demand isn't there anymore. So as they decommission those books and take them off the library shelves, or they weed them, there's different terms for it, those books get sent to us. We pay for the freight, we pay for the supplies, and then we'll turn around and any book we can sell across the dozens of marketplaces that we sell on, whether it's betterworldbooks.com or eBay or Amazon or another marketplace, we'll give a percentage of the sale price back to the library that supplied the book to us. And then on top of that, we'll donate another percentage that we work out with the library back to their literacy partner, which in a lot of cases now, libraries are able to select themselves as the literacy partner.
Oh, neat. Because that was something I noticed, too, that there's the Book for Book program, but then there's also the Supporting Literacy program. Are those one and the same, or are they different?
They're different.
So what is the difference? So the literacy programs, are those nonprofits and libraries that are doing intentional outreach and education, or kind of what is the difference between the Book to Book and the literacy programs?
Well, the book for book is we're actually making a physical donation of a book to an organization, whereas the money that we raise for a library or nonprofit literacy organization or an education cause, that's actually dollars being donated directly back to those organizations. So in the company's history, we've donated well over $30 million back to literacy organizations and libraries, and then we've almost donated 30 million physical books to organizations around the world.
Wow, that's really incredible. That is really, really incredible. I'm curious, what are some of your favorite literacy programs that you all have invested in so far? Or is that like asking you to choose amongst your children? I don't know.
That's a good point. I don't have a favorite because we support hundreds of literacy causes around the world. They all do phenomenal work, but I'd say some of our notable organizations that we work with would be Books for Africa. They've been a longtime partner of ours. I actually serve on their board of directors. But Books for Africa has been around for about 30 years, and this past December, they eclipsed a huge milestone and donated their 50 millionth book to the continent of Africa. And Better World Books, the past 17 years or so, has been a big part of the Books for Africa story, having donated millions of books and millions of dollars, in excess of $2 million actually, to Books for Africa to help them carry out their mission of ending the book famine in Africa. And I've had the chance to visit Africa on numerous occasions and see their good work in action, and actually see the books that originate from Better World Books and some of our library partners get distributed and put in the hands of readers all across Africa, and it's extremely gratifying to see that.
That is really cool. That is really cool. I guess that kind of dovetails well into my question about what some of the most rewarding experiences have been as you've been part of building and growing Better World Books?
Well, I'd say probably the most rewarding experience for me is, especially over the past 17 years, is the diversity of people that I've been able to meet across multiple places in the world, whether it's Korea or Africa or across Europe, North America, South America. Our company sources books primarily from 6 different countries, but we serve customers and book donation recipients in over 200 countries. So I've had a tremendous amount of interactions from people all over the world. Got to learn a lot of great things, hear a lot of great things, see some of the work of our literacy partners and our libraries in action. And I'd say overall that for me, that's definitely the most rewarding part of the job. And on top of that, we have over 350 associates in 4 different locations in the globe. So having a chance to interact with our teams, a lot of us have grown up together. A lot of us are veterans of the business. We have combined, the company collectively has centuries of book selling experience, and we've built the company from the ground up, and we're actually days away from selling our 100th millionth book. It's hard to say, but it's definitely remarkable. And I'd say people are what drives our business, and that's what's been the most rewarding experience for me.
That's amazing. That's awesome. And kind of the flip side, I'm curious, I imagine, growing something, especially with the impact and the reach you all have had, I'm sure there were challenges along the way. I'm curious, what were some of those biggest challenges, and how did you all navigate through them?
Well, we've definitely encountered a number of challenges across the years. I mean, where do you want to start?
Wherever you feel like it is would be kind of the most insightful. I think part of the reason why I ask this question to folks too is knowing that a lot of folks listening are people who want to start a business that is having an impact and doing good in the world, but man, sometimes getting through some of those hurdles is really challenging. So I think sometimes hearing from other businesses like what was hard and how they worked through it can help folks. So whatever, kind of with that lens, thinking through what some of those may have been.
Well, we've, just like any business and entrepreneurial minded business, we've had plenty of challenges, whether it's keeping up with technology, keeping up with the demands of pricing over 7 million unique products at any given point in time across dozens of marketplaces. That definitely brings challenges. I'd say that the current challenges that everybody's been faced with is operating through COVID. And because of COVID and other reasons, there's some, we've got a booming economy, very tight labor conditions that we're dealing with that is causing stresses on the business. But if I were to look back, I'd say one of the biggest challenges that we had to deal with, and just about 2 years ago, we dealt with it very successfully and are happy with the outcome, but we had some challenges with the company's capital structure. So I could talk about this for hours. But the company was able to successfully sell itself to a nonprofit organization 2 years ago. So it worked out really well. The founders and shareholders of the business, it didn't work out so well for those that held stock in the company, but to be owned by a mission-aligned investor that is very supportive of allowing the company to continue to do good in the world is a great feeling, and it's going to allow us to do even more good and serve more customers as we grow BetterWorldBooks.com and reduce our reliance on Amazon. And I'd say Amazon is we're probably one of their top 50 sellers, marketplace sellers in terms of unit volume, lifetime. But I think we've realized how important it is for us to maintain our own customer relationships. And Amazon, for those of you listening that aren't aware, they take about 40 cents of every dollar of revenue that Better World Books sells on their platform. So needless to say, that is not a sustainable business model. I think it worked out really well, and it was working well until they changed their fee structure rather dramatically almost 3 years ago. For media sellers, it almost put us out of business. I know it's put other booksellers out of business, but that was the big wake-up call. We've realized that we cannot put all our eggs in the Amazon basket, and thankfully, customers are rewarding us, and they're looking for an alternative than shopping on Amazon, and they're steering their dollars and especially their book purchasing dollars on BetterWorldBooks.com. And at the end of the day, if Better World Books is going to continue to thrive and continue to do all the great things we're doing with donating books to the Internet Archive so they can build the world's largest free public lending library, similar to the Library of Alexandria back in the day, Better World Books needs to be able to sustain itself through its own customer base on BetterWorldBooks.com, and that's definitely the direction we're going. And we've had quite a successful year because of that, and we're very grateful for our customers.
Yeah, I mean, we were chatting a little bit before we started recording. I mean, that's how I found you all was, I was, as much as possible, I try to support our local mom and pop bookshops here in Portland, Maine. And inevitably, there are times when they just don't have books I'm looking for. And prior to knowing about Better World Books, I was going to Amazon. And then I found you all through searching the B Corp directory and have never looked back because the inventory you all have is incredible. And I've been telling friends and sending folks your way because I just think that it's so important to kind of break that, at least as consumers, to kind of be supporting folks like yourself instead of Amazon. I'm curious to hear a little bit about I had a thought there. You had mentioned talking about COVID. I'm curious, with kind of the challenges of COVID, are you finding that people are turning more to books? Like, have books, like I would think book sales would increase because maybe people are reading more, but I don't know. I'm curious what your experience has been with that.
I can tell you they're definitely buying more books. I don't know if they're reading more, but they're definitely buying more books. I'd probably fall into that category where I've bought a lot of books, but haven't necessarily read them all. But back in March, I was actually in our Reno distribution center picking books with our team, and I distinctly remember one of the books I picked, the title, and I have a picture. It was The Coming Plague. And I was like, oh my heavens. So since then, the world has changed. Needless to say, Better World Books as an e-commerce business has done extremely well. I think with the lockdowns, people were definitely looking for alternative sources of entertainment. I'm sure the streaming business, as we all know, have done extremely well, but the book sales have gone up, both used and new books, and we've seen that trend. It's continued the past 15 months or so, and the really good news for us is that more and more people are deciding to shop on BetterWorldBooks.com, and we're selling fewer books on Amazon and other third-party marketplaces, which has been phenomenal for our business, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago there. But COVID has been rewarding for us in terms of sales, but it's definitely been a struggle in terms of keeping our team safe. That's been our foremost priority through the course of the pandemic, and obviously making sure we were able to serve our customers safely. But there's been a lot of supply chain issues. A lot of our libraries have been closed, so they haven't been sending us books. but I can tell you right now, we're full to the brim with books that we need to process, and our biggest challenge at the moment is getting folks in the door, training them, getting them to process books, and thankfully we've got really large distribution centers in the 4 areas that we operate in, and people can socially distance really easy. It's a great job to have, especially in a pandemic.
If folks are listening and potentially looking for work in those areas, where are kind of the areas that you're hiring, and where should people go to kind of apply?
So they can go to our website, betterworldbooks.com, and look at the careers page. But we are hiring in our York, Pennsylvania distribution center, our Mishawaka, Indiana distribution center, and our Reno, Nevada distribution center. So those are the 3 areas that we'll gladly, we'd love to talk to you and bring you on board to help process books, pick books, get books out the door to our customers, and also help us donate more books to where they're needed most.
That's great. I'm curious. So in addition to kind of the book for book literacy program, literacy work that you're supporting, I heard that you also have a sustainability council. Can you share with us a little bit about that group and what they are working on?
Sure. So historically, the company we've had a literacy council and a sustainability council, and more and more, I'd say the sustainability focus of our company is embedded across all the departments. It's embedded in all of our decision making. So our council actually meets on an as-needed basis. But right now, I'd say that the biggest initiatives that we're working on have to do with our paperless picking project that we have rolled out successfully in at least our Mishawaka, Indiana facility, and we're in the process of rolling it out globally to all of our facilities. That's going to have a tremendous impact on how many pick slips we print every day, and it will aid our productivity and it'll help us get books out the door faster to our customers. So that's one of the big initiatives. Our outbound packaging is something that I've always not been very happy with. So we're looking at ways to upgrade that and just improve the experience for our customers that shop on betterworldbooks.com. So those are the 2 big things that we're looking at. But the team also tackles our annual carbon footprint audit. That's a extremely large endeavor because we track the distance that our books travel to one of our distribution centers, and then we track the distance to the customer's doorstep. So when you're selling millions of packages and processing tens of millions of books each year, we track all of that data, and that helps us compile our carbon audit each year, and the team is largely responsible for that. And then beyond that, we're always looking for ways to reduce our carbon footprint and minimize our impact on the environment. So that would involve everything from asking our clients to pre-screen the books, so only ship the books that we know we can either resell or donate. And there's no reason to put a book in a box that we know that we can't resell or donate and we'll ultimately have to recycle. No reason to ship that across the country to just recycle it. But we're always looking for ways to be a better citizen.
And in doing so, I feel like you all have kept millions of books out of landfills too. Through I can't remember exactly what it was called, but something about a commitment to no books going to landfills, right? Like it was that everything's either getting recycled or getting donated or getting resold in some capacity.
That is correct. So we do our best not to send a book to a landfill. There's been times where, for health reasons, we've had to throw a book out here and there. But we are very committed to either reselling the book keeping it in the reading cycle through resale or donation. The worst case, we say it's the worst case that we'll ultimately have to recycle the book. And we work with great recycling partners around the world, and they're turning these books into all kinds of useful products so they can live another day. But Ben, one of the things I think we're most proud of, and it's because of the acquisition of the company by this nonprofit called Better World Libraries, which was funded in part by Brewster Kahle, the entrepreneur behind the Internet Archive. He sold his business 2 decades ago. It's called Alexa to Amazon, and he hit the internet jackpot. And he's since turned his time into building the Internet Archive, the Wayback Machine, if you're familiar with that. But he's turned his sights recently in the past few years to building out the world's largest free public lending library. And we're donating a lot of books to make that effort reality. So the big project that they've been involved with is converting all the footnotes in Wikipedia and the citations that mention a book. So if we've had that book, or they've sourced the book and digitized it and preserved it, you can actually now go to that Wikipedia article, click on the footnote, and if the footnote's one of the books that's been digitized, it'll bring you to the exact page of that book. So researchers and students now have universal access to millions of books that they have never had access to before, and they can check that book out if it's available through their program. So it's a phenomenal effort, and we've spent the last 2 years helping to integrate our supply chain to help them turn that into reality for readers and students and scholars and educators, and make that universally accessible 24 hours a day through archive.org. So we're pretty proud of that effort.
Oh my gosh, that is incredible. Wow. I'm just blown away about even just the potential of that, to have access, because I think one of the things, I think one of the things that is that can be a barrier for folks is access to information, and in so many cases you sometimes have to be a student to have access to certain resources or books or whatnot, and so to have that is really a game changer. That's really exciting work.
Especially when through the pandemic, thousands and thousands of libraries and schools were shut down, and kids were sent home. Oftentimes they don't have access to books and the materials that they need to study and learn. So the timing of what we're doing has been extremely valuable to millions and millions of people around the world. And it's phenomenal to be a part of that and watch what the Internet Archive's been able to do. They're doing phenomenal things, and we're proud to play our small part in that.
That's amazing. And if people just want to check out the Internet Archive, is it just like internetarchive.org, or where can people go to check that out?
Yeah, if they just go to archive.org, they'll have full access to all their resources. All of it's free. If you find a book that you want to check out, you've got to sign up for a library card, but it's totally free, and you'll have access to amazing amounts of material and knowledge.
That is really cool. I'm curious. So I'm kind of in that realm of kind of the book industry. I'm curious, and especially in the kind of presence of the pandemic, how have audiobooks impacted the business? Is that something that you all are looking into in the future, or have you seen that impact your business at all?
We don't do much in the space of selling audiobooks. We definitely source audiobooks from our library customers. I'd say with anything that can be streamed, we've seen less of a demand for the physical audiobooks In fact, we were talking to a group the other day. They couldn't even visualize what a physical audiobook is because, they instantly think of audible.com or other channels that they can source, or even libraries. Libraries are great sources for audiobooks. But that's definitely something that we're looking at offering our customers, and we're definitely looking at expanding beyond books right now on BetterWorldBooks.com, and audiobooks will definitely be a part of that offering at some point.
Sweet. So it sounds like someday I'll be able to replace my Audible with perhaps a Better World Books streaming subscription.
Well, if I had my way, one day we hope to make that happen one day.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited and looking forward to that for sure.
Excellent.
Shifting gears a little bit to B Corp land, I'm curious, how did you all hear about B Corp?
So that's a great question. I remember Xavier, our founder that was based out in California. He originally heard of B Corporation and the great things that they were doing. I think that was probably in 2006 when we first heard about them. And between Xavier and the company's first CEO, David Murphy, they were all over learning more about B Corporation and how Better World Books could get involved. So it turns out, I think in 2007, we became one of the first 82 founding B Corporation members. And we've stuck with it ever since. It's done great things for the company. We've recently added the B Corporation branding to our packaging. We're proud to partner with them. Our employees, it gives them something to relate to. Our customers that are looking for more than just price and selection, they want to make a difference with a B Corporation. It's helped us from a selling standpoint. It's definitely helped us in the early days. People were very wary of our business model. It still fascinates me today that somebody would challenge our business model. But I'm proud to say 17 years later, we're still here. And part of that is because of us getting behind the B Corporation movement and supporting that movement since day one. So I think now the B Corporation movement's grown to over 3,500 large and small companies across the globe, and it's great to see how successful they've been.
Yeah, that's great. And so I'm curious to that end, kind of more specifically, what have been some of the biggest benefits in being certified B Corp? Are there partnerships that have come out of that? I know you mentioned a little bit the kind of the selling point for consumers, for sure. Like myself, I found you through the B Corp directory. But are there other kind of tangential things that have come out of that?
Well, I'd say for us, I'm not sure if this benefit is still offered, but Salesforce.com is our CRM platform that we use. And I think before us being a B Corporation, we're probably spending upwards of $100,000 in licensing fees for that CRM platform from Salesforce. And because of the B Corporation discount, we are able to drive that down significantly. So we're thankful for the relationship that they brought to the table. We're thankful that Salesforce kind of took us under their wings, and they continue to extend that discount to us. And it's really helped the company scale and grow and work with thousands of libraries across the world, because without Salesforce.com, our work would it would be a lot harder. Let's put it that way. But I know that's the biggest financial benefit that we've gotten out of the relationship. But there's way more to it than just that one part of it.
Awesome. And so, as you mentioned, you all have been at this for over 17 years, and I read that early on you encountered a lot of kind of naysayers, folks saying you were being too idealistic or naive, and yet you're approaching your 100 millionth book sale some 17 years later. So clearly the concept and business have been a success. I'm curious, what advice would you have for other people out there that might be getting the same kind of doubting questions in their quest to use business as a force for good?
Well, I've got a handful of recommendations, but
We're
first
ready.
and foremost, never give up. Don't let the naysayers get you down. I think I've learned over the years that there's always going to be naysayers out there, no matter what you're doing in the world, and how positive and favorable your impact is. Somebody's always going to be trying to tear you down. Thankfully for us, we've overcome a lot of those challenges. I know in the early days, prior to us selling new books, we were criticized by publishers and authors, but now we offer over 16 million new books for sale, and our new book sales are growing tremendously on betterworldbooks.com. So we don't see much of that criticism anymore from that audience. I know some of in the especially early days, we were criticized by some of the campus bookstores around the country. They viewed us as competition, but right now we partner with pretty much every major campus bookstore organization in the United States to help them monetize the books that they can't sell locally in their stores. So it's worked out extremely well in the end. But I'd say at the end of the day, you've got to make sure you focus on building those relations with your own customers and making sure you as the company controls that and fosters that relationship with your customer, and don't outsource that to another marketplace, because you'll just be held hostage one day. They'll make changes. They'll raise their fees, their rates, and you'll always live in fear if you don't start to invest in your brand, and do that as early on in the process as possible is what I'd recommend.
That's awesome. That is great. Great feedback for sure. And so I'm curious for listeners that are hearing this, and I'm like, oh man, I got like a box full of books in the attic and I don't know what to do with them. How can folks get you their books?
Well, one of the best ways is to actually donate those books to your local library. So with the amount of libraries that we work with, we want to support our libraries. In a lot of cases, they have robust friends groups that have their own sales, and after those sales, a lot of times that's where we'll work directly with the library or the friends group. So at some point, your books may eventually make it to us, but for those of you that live in an area that we support with our Dropbox program, you can go to betterworldbooks.com, click on the individuals link, and it'll show you a map of all the Dropboxes that you could donate your books to. So that's probably one of the top ways of working with us.
That's really cool. And I'll make sure that link ends up in the show notes too for folks. Oh my gosh, Dustin, this has been so great. Is there anything else that you want to add, or anything that we haven't touched on that feels really important?
No, I'd say that the top way to support Better World Books and our mission is to buy a book from betterworldbooks.com and tell your friends about us. And next time you go to Amazon, before you buy that book, just remember that 40 cents of every dollar of that purchase is going to go in Amazon's pocket and not the pocket of the seller, that true seller of the item that you're buying. So there's definitely a place for Amazon, but at least in our space, we're able to exist, and we're able to do all the good things that we're doing because of the hundreds of thousands of people that are now turning to betterworldbooks.com for their book purchases. So we're very grateful for that. And I'd say for those of you entrepreneurs out there, I never in a million years that I'd be in the position that I'm in now, much less have worked at a company for 17 years and made the impact that we've been able to make. But I'd recommend that you just keep it simple, follow your conscience, maintain your work ethic, and have fun, and the rest will come naturally.
I think that's great advice. I got one last question for you. Of course, we're talking about books. What's your favorite book?
Oh, Ben, I don't have favorites.
That's fair. That's fair. Awesome. Oh my
I
gosh.
can tell you that I can tell you that my favorite book that we've donated. We actually did this last year, and it's a really cool story, and probably one I'm most proud of. We came across a first edition of Frederick Douglass's oration. So it was actually a speech he delivered at Corinthian Hall back in the 1800s. And for a while, we looked to see if we could sell the book, but we actually figured that the way that we could have the most impact around the world with this particular artifact was to first have it digitized and preserved by Internet Archive. So you can actually see that book. It's publicly available on archive.org. I encourage everybody to read it. It's a phenomenal piece of history. But we actually donated the physical artifact to the Enoch Pratt Free Library in Baltimore. So that is now in their African American collection. We view it as a priceless artifact. It's a unique piece of history, and I'd say that's the most important book that we've had an opportunity to showcase and share with the world.
That is really cool. That is really cool. And I'm excited to check it out for sure. And I'll make sure that also lands in the show notes for folks as well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Dustin. This has been really great. I really appreciate your time and you answering all of these questions. This is great.
Thank you for having us, Ben. We appreciate it, and thanks for getting the word out about us.
My pleasure.